What's up, everybody? For today's episode of Thoughtful Thursday on my wealth journey, we're going to be talking about self-made, the whole self-made versus not self-made, wealth, millionaires, wealthy, whatever you want to call it, and the kind of mindset that's prevailing among at least a lot of people that I've heard tend to believe that millionaires and rich people are, for the most part, not self-made. That it's such an accomplishment to be a self-made millionaire because it's not common or it's not the norm. When in actuality, if you go to Google, the very first article that comes up, at least on my Google, I feel like it's different for different people. But the very first article says about 32% of the Forbes 400. This is from 2011 though, so I gotta find the current numbers. But 32% belonged to very rich families, down from 60% back farther ago in 1982. So if you just go by that trend, we're trending far less legacy wealth and trending more heavily towards self-made being the norm versus the exception. So what I hear people say is like, oh, well, yeah, these people are rich because their daddy or their mom or their family is rich and gave them money and they had just all this other stuff going on for them. So yes and no. Like, there are obviously legacy wealthy people, but the funny thing enough, and this is why this is going to be a Thoughtful Thursday, the funny thing enough, there's also other studies, if you continue to read in financial literacy and how the wealthy become wealthy, there's a funny phenomenon that happens when people are born wealthy or born that privileged and they have not had to work or learn or really go through the process of getting the right mentality for wealth, is that they lose their money. A lot of those heirs and a lot of the wealthy that are second generation and that are born with the silver spoon that we like to talk about, they actually don't often remain wealthy unless it was like really instilled in them through their parents, through teaching. They tend to take money for granted. They don't value it as much as the people that are self-made that did have to work for it. And as I said, the statistics are showing that most millionaires are not in that category. So, I mean, if you go to more articles, you'll see kind of conflicting stuff on it. The second article says that only 27% of multimillionaires are self-made. So that's far lower than the other one was basically saying maybe, what was it? It was like 30% were, 32% belong to very rich families. So these would be the not self-made. This is saying 32% are not self-made, and this one is saying that 27% are self-made. So kind of like opposite information going on here. But I want to say, regardless of whether more millionaires are self-made or are not, what does that, people that make that argument, and this is not a jab necessarily to those people, but if you're making that argument, like, I want you to think about what is the purpose of you making that argument. Where is that normally stemming from? What kind of thought processes are getting people to say, like, oh, well, the rich people, they just have everything handed to them, or they have this happen, they have this happen. Do you see what all those things I just said kind of have in common? Well, what about this? What about this? What about this? You're making excuses, basically. Like, anytime you're looking for a reason why somebody can do something that you cannot, unless there is some genuine, I mean, I guess you may be able to make the case in like sports or something that someone physically can just, genetically and physically, they can do something that your body is not built to handle. But other than that, anything intellectually and financially, we all, if you're living in the United States of America, actually have a lot of upward mobility. And I feel like people like to use the fact that some or many wealthy, they got that from their family, from their rich family, as an excuse to why they can't do it because they don't have a rich family. But I'm like, either way you look at it, whether you think that more millionaires are self-made versus, or if you think more millionaires are inherited, there's still a large percentage. Even if you go on the low end, 27% is a high amount. I don't know if I already talked about in the video how many millionaires we have in the United States. Let's do it really quick. How many millionaires in the U.S.? There are 23.7 million. Oh yeah, I do remember saying the number before. There are 23.7 million households with a net worth of at least 7 million. At least 7 million. So that's not even just like if they have 1 or 2 million. This is at least 7. That's a lot of households. 18% of all households. Oh yeah, that looks like the same article that I used to discuss the wealth gap though. But anyway. But that's a lot of people. So can you imagine even 27% of 23.7 million? I'm not good at mathing in my head, excuse me y'all. All right, let's do it. 27%, oops. 27% of 23 million. 0, 0, 0, 0. How many zeros is that even? That's a lot of zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's 23 million. All right. Is still, what is that? 6,210,000. 6 million. I might have done that math wrong. I wouldn't be surprised. But if you're good at math, you know it's still a really large number either way. So with that in mind, think about things that you're holding, things that you're telling yourself that hold you back from even putting in the effort to become wealthy, to be a millionaire, to do anything that you think is out of your reach. Like, think about, is it really out of your reach, or are you telling yourself that it's out of your reach? Is it really something that only people can do who have it handed to them, or are there tons of self-made millionaires and tons of people that are wealthy that started out just like you, probably even worse than you? There's so many that started from actual poverty, poor families, lower middle class and middle class families, just like your average everyday. I'm very much was born into just average middle class family. And like, why would that stop you if it's not the circumstances of your birth? Like, you were born into a privileged country, and people literally have had their parents be on drugs, they've been to jail, literally every type of scenario that you can think of. There is a person in that scenario that still got wealthy and became a millionaire. Like, there's literally, you can't use that background and the upbringing as an excuse. Like, I hate to say it, but I don't hate to say it. Like, you can't, there's not really any good excuse. So if it's something that you want, the only, I guess, what is the word? The only argument that I can kind of understand and get behind is if you are someone that says you truly do not want to be wealthy because your priorities are on, I don't know, going to be a nun at a monastery or a monk or something like that, then sure, go be a nun, go be a monk. Or you just truly want to be a teacher, or actually teachers can be millionaires too. So it's literally, you have to literally tell yourself, I just don't want to be wealthy. Now, the amount of people that can say that and mean it and be telling the truth, I don't know how many people can genuinely say, I just do not want to be wealthy, like, at all. Like, if you were to give me $1 million just as a gift, as a donation, for me to go out and do good in the world, I would turn it down. That's what you're saying. And if you can truly say that and feel it and believe it and mean it in your heart, then good for you. and you're not the target audience of this video. But for everyone else, that you do, whether you admit it out loud or not, you do want to be wealthy. You desire to build wealth for you, for your family, for your church, for charity, for whatever calling that you feel. I feel like we all know deep down, whether we admit it or not, that wealth is not the most important thing. It's what you do with the wealth. It's not that being wealthy is inherently such a great thing. It's more so that money is a tool, and wealth is a tool, and is power, and it is the ability to change things that you don't like. It's the ability to provide things that you wouldn't be able to provide otherwise. So I want you to take a look at these excuses. Think about that thought that people are just have these external reasons as to why they can or cannot be. Honestly, none of that matters. Like, if you want to find a way, you will find a way. All right, so if you don't like my tone in this video, then feel free to let me know in the comments. Any feedback, or if I missed anything. But yeah, I just thought it was very interesting. I saw somebody make the argument that most millionaires were not self-made, unlike the stats people, a lot of people have known. I feel the stats on most millionaires being self-made these days, but apparently the way they got that data was suspect. So yeah, I was like, I felt the need to call out that mentality that whether or not they are mostly self-made or mostly not self-made, either way they're still self-made millionaires, and either way they come from every single background. So that is the brief synopsis. Peace out. Let's make some wealth.